have some type of stress and adaptation scenario that's going on with our bodies and our minds as well, and our physiology, which requires some progressive overloading to continue this performance lifestyle improvement type of situation. That's the challenge, right? Is that there's kind of not really a maintenance phase. Even though we'll call it that, you're kind of either getting better or you're getting worse. Sometimes not getting worse is getting better, right? But eventually, if you're not getting better, you are going to start to flip. You know, again, coming back to this, we're looking at our training potency a lot of the times, or as you continue to evolve with your programming for yourself or for your clients, patients, you're looking at potency. How well is what I'm giving them or giving myself working, right? Is the dosage that I'm giving myself going to help me get to the results as quickly and safe as possible? And that's where I come here. A lot of times we're focused on the fastest, but not necessarily the safest, right? And ultimately that leads to overtraining, right? Which Gunnar Peterson, when I met him for the first time, we were talking about this, and he said, well, you know, it's really not overtraining that people have the problem with, it's under-recovering, right? And that's always a challenge depending on, you know, every situation being unique, but also at the same time, if you go back up to the top bullet points, you have to push your body into some level of stress and adaptation, right? So it creates this kind of fine line that we're always walking on, you know, especially when we're getting into this year-round type of training, because it makes it so easy to overtrain, especially for, you know, people when you're working with your clients. I think as you get into this, you know, practice and lifestyle and doing it year-round, and when you're formally educated like we are on this situation, it gets a little bit easier to respond and understand and pay attention to the signs and symptoms that you're getting to tell you to stop overtraining. But for most people that start and embark into this idea, you know, where they realize that exercise is hygiene and they want to get into this kind of year-round mentality, they start running into a lot of problems, and typically leading them to injuries, right? And also, right, this is what helps you earn yourself efficacy, like I was saying. And again, I'll come back to wrestling. There's nothing more important than your power endurance for believing in yourself. As soon as you get out of shape, you know, you can be the best technical athlete on the mat, and as soon as you start losing your power endurance, whether it's from an injury or, again, overtraining or whatever, you start doubting yourself, because you know in that third period at the end of the match that you're not going to have the endurance, and more importantly, again, power endurance, right? You start to lose your power, right? And you basically can't hit that fifth gear or whatever you want to look at, and you know it, and it decreases your self-efficacy significantly, right? So why is this important, right? Is because in training, these are the things that we're really tweaking and trying to work with to improve our performance. But as we, you know, have just kind of talked about, you're really, you know, focusing on these parameters can really increase your risk for injury really quickly. So it makes it a really challenging, delicate process and a fine line to walk, where you need to keep seeing these improvements in your performance, especially as with the principle of diminishing returns, as you're trying to achieve, you know, those last few percentages of your performance levels. You know, it really is putting you out there and making you vulnerable, or your clients or patients vulnerable for risk for injury. You know, and when there's nothing that's looming, Michael, you missed the last part. We were talking about timing and scheduling and stuff. You know, when there's nothing that's really a sense of urgency, and I talk to my patients and athletes and stuff about this all the time, if we don't have the state championship coming up, then, hey, look, take your time, right? Don't be overzealous. Add some extra laps, right? Do a little bit of extra work. You know, stay focused on the process and continue, but don't try to microwave it, and don't get overzealous, because it's just another risk factor for you for getting re-injured or injured, you know, altogether. Right.